it's pretty funny. In the Bob McGinn article, one scout compared Jack Besh to Alec Pierce, and then another scout compared Jack Besh to Cooper Kupp. And those two players are very, very different, but they do have something in common.
They're both Chardonnays.
And Renner compared him to Chris Hogan. So we know what spectrum this guy's on.
On today's show, we will be discussing the outlook for both fantasy and real life. On wide receivers, we expect to go in roughly rounds 1, 2, and 3. We'll go in the order of Mike's rankings. We'll also get Renner's NFL player comp for each prospect. We're going to talk about Travis Hunter as a wide receiver. I think it remains to be seen how much he'll play at corner, how much he'll play at wide receiver. We've had some debates back and forth about this with various people. I don't really want to get into that today, Renner. My main question is, if he plays wide receiver, how good can he be as an NFL wide receiver? And my eyes were opened by your comp, Chad Johnson with elite ball skills. So Renner, go ahead on Travis Hunter as an NFL wide receiver.
I think he's a wide receiver one. Like, I think he's a true wide receiver one. If he was in last year's class, I would have had him ahead of Rome Odunze, behind the top two, obviously, just because of who those guys were. But I think he's insanely talented. He's the body control, the ball skills. I think he has the best ball skills I've seen at the wide receiver position coming out of any prospect. The way he attacks the football, there's so few times on his tape where he's letting the ball into his frame. He is always hands way away from his body, plucking it out of the air. Had only 3 drops in his career, and 2 were on screens. Like, the 2 were him just like looking to the side. One was on a slant where he's about to get hit and he's like looking to see. That's it. He doesn't drop balls like over the middle of the football field when he's actually having to concentrate on that ball in the air. He goes and gets it. He's slippery. He's skinny, but I think he's also skinny because he had to play 128 snaps a game. His cardio had to be insane. So if he gets to focus on one side of the ball or the other, I think he's going to bulk up, get more physical. And just like, the guy's ability is off the charts. If he just gets to focus on one position, I think his talent and his ability is going to go through the roof. And we have this debate about wide receiver corner, not looking at like the Browns, Giants, and Pats don't need corners. He's going to go in the top 4, and it's 4 teams that won't draft a corner. So he's going to play wide receiver at the NFL level. So I'm really high on him, and I think I'm higher on him at wide receiver than I am at corner because wide receivers get paid more than corners.
Man, I love that take because that is not in line with what a lot of people have been saying about Travis Hunter. I feel like the general consensus, at least around the combine, was that Travis Hunter was going to be a cornerback who you sprinkle in at receiver. That's kind of what Dion did. That's kind of what Champ Bailey did, Charles Woodson. But there's way more money to be made at wide receiver. You look at the teams that are in the market to draft him. The Patriots are definitely using him at wide receiver if he gets there. I think the Browns could for sure. The Giants could for sure. So also, Levitan, have you had a chance to watch Travis Hunter play basketball yet?
Oh, I need to do that.
Renner, have you seen him play basketball yet?
I have not, actually.
He is an insane athlete. An insane athlete. Colorado basketball was down this year. I guarantee you he would have been the best player on the team. Betting on a superlative athlete like that, I don't care what position he's going to play. Well, I think this is a question for you, Renner. Like, how is he as a route runner? Because I know that they ran a ton of screens at Colorado. Shedeur Sanders had a really low ADOT, like an 8-yard ADOT. What did you think about him as a route runner?
It's difficult to really get a great handle because they basically try to protect him in terms of he's running a lot of spot routes. He's running a lot of screens, as you mentioned, and it's just like to try to keep him fresh. So he's not running down the football field a lot. But when he wants to, just crazy hips, crazy ability to get in and out of his breaks, and then that explosiveness to blow by guys. Obviously needs some refinement, and obviously like he's not going to be a polished product splitting ways the way he was. And it's always hard to evaluate how tired is this guy snap in and snap out. But that's even like scarier that he put up, 1,258 yards and 15 touchdowns, and he's got like a next gear to him. So yeah, I think he is truly a wide receiver one type of prospect and should be at the next level.
If I was doing a mock right now, I would have Cam Ward 1, Abdul Carter 2, Travis Hunter 3 to the Giants. So you're talking about putting him with Malik Neighbors, and Travis Hunter in the same wide receiver core would be exciting despite the quarterback situation there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if the quarterback situation, Jameis is though,
I know,
that's not even right.
I hope Jameis gets on the field, but this freaking Russ, the corpse of Russ, I'm afraid is going to be out there. Anyways, I digress. Number 2 on Renner's list is Ted McMillan. Not insane, very strong production at Arizona, 6'4", 219, 90 catches, 1,402 yards, 10 touchdowns in 2023. Also caught 84 balls, 1,300 plus yards, 8 touchdowns in 2024. So from a production standpoint, there's no doubt, I think, that Ted McMillan is a number 2 wide receiver in this class. People are going to come in with other takes about Golden and other guys based on other stuff. But yeah, he is your number 2. Renner, go ahead on Ted McMillan.
To me, he's comfortably number 2 for me. In fact, like I said, it's not a bad wide receiver class. It just doesn't have top end guys. He's probably the only other guy I would take in the first round, just because there's so many day 2 guys. Like I think it's a good class because there's so many guys who in the second and third round I think can be very productive. It just doesn't have the surefire guy outside of Travis Hunter, but I think Ted is. Ted's a very, very high end possession type of wide receiver. And not only can he like get open off the line of scrimmage, underneath intermediate range, but he could throw him screens too. He broke 29 tackles after the catch. He is very, very good after the catch and has unique sort of movement skills for a guy that size. You know, he's 6'4", 220 pounds. I feel like guys that look like him, they usually end up on basketball courts. Like he has that sort of unique body control and footwork to kind of, you see him at the top of the route and it just looks like no big wide receivers I see in the NFL. Just some freakish stuff he can do from that perspective, but he's just not fast. He's not take the top off the defense, explosive play guy. He's more of your, 150 plus target guy. Like he is truly an underneath sort of chain moving threat, but he's so good in that regard. So good at the catch point, great ball skills. Just a super, super high floor sort of player.
It's funny because you'll see a lot of different comparisons for Ted McMillan in terms of like his player comparison. Mike Evans, Drake London, those guys are not very similar. Michael Thomas, he gets comparisons to Michael Thomas. You have his comparison as AJ Green. That would be more along the lines of like the Mike Evans. I feel like Drake London and Michael Thomas are way different than them. But his process has been weird. I mean, at the beginning, like he was being mocked to the Patriots at number 4. All of a sudden, he starts to appear in mocks in like the 20s. I feel like there's something going on here, and maybe our hint was that our hint came when that video came out of him saying that he doesn't watch tape. Have you heard anything? Like, is there something going on behind the scenes here?
If you watch his reps, he is not a guy who's going to get interested in blocking. He is not necessarily running every route full speed. Like there is some of that to his tape, and was a guy who kind of held them hostage a bit in terms of NIL, like was thinking about leaving. So there is some of that where he's not a grinder at wide receiver the way you'd want. But I really have no concern. Like I don't have concerns with the tape in terms of just physical capabilities. The guy is going to be a good starter in the NFL.
Okay. Yeah, that tape thing, I think got way overblown. The tape of him saying he doesn't like to watch tape, or just I don't even know when it was from. I don't know what year it was, what he was, if he was joking, whatever. Like, I would throw that out. But maybe if there was like more evidence like that to correlate, maybe I would give it more merit. But yeah. All right. Third on your board is not Matthew Golden, who we'll get to in a second. Third on Renner's board at the wide receiver position is Luther Burden. Luther Burden was this crazy prospect coming out of high school. Never really got it going that much at Missouri. Stock really seems to be falling now. I think we asked Field Yates, who's one player he thought who was being mocked in the first round, who wouldn't go in the first round. He said Luther Burden. Renner, you have him here at wide receiver 3. What do you think about Burden?
I think after Travis Hunter, he's the most talented wide receiver in this class. Like this guy's ability is, close to like a Malik Neighbors. He is unique. He has high-end explosiveness. He has change of direction. He can break tackles at will. He's got a great frame, strong. He hasn't improved a lick since his freshman year. The guy is the same player. No route running chops to speak of, no nuance. You just never saw any aspects to his game added. And on tape this past year, there were games where like he gave up. Like if he has to run off, a seam route to open up one of his teammates, he's not doing it. If he has to block and dig out a linebacker, no interest. Like there are serious effort and developmental concerns from him. But my gosh, if you can get this guy's head on straight, and maybe him falling out of the first round is truly the best thing that could happen for him. Like I'd rather he go 40th than 10th, because then like if he goes 10th, it rewards everything he did at the collegiate level. But if he goes 40th, then it's like, oh man, I thought I was going to be this top 10 pick. I was in every first round mock. What just happened? That might light a fire under him. But so he's a really high boomer bust sort of player. But man, just like if he could just figure it out, there's so much ability there. Great ball skills too. Like he doesn't drop a lot of passes, can make plays contested. So he really could be, he could be a 1,500 yard guy at the next level or be a Kadarius Toney. There are a wide range of outcomes for this dude.
The quarterback at Mizzou, Brady Cook, by the way, went to my high school. Do you think I've heard and read everywhere that he was a big problem regarding Luther Burden's production at Mizzou?
It was the quarterback and his role. He was often a decoy, and I think it was kind of a hand in hand where it was like he wasn't featured enough, and then because he wasn't featured enough, he doesn't try, and that's how like he only had 676 yards. He only had like I tweeted earlier, he had more broken tackles than he had first downs. The guy just like was not productive. If you just looked at that season's tape and that production, no one would ever say first round type of wide receiver. So it was a myriad of factors that led to him being so unproductive, but it still should have been better than 676, even with Brady Cook, even with that usage.
I feel like this dude could be a player that, maybe underachieved a little bit in college and just explodes if he's utilized correctly in the NFL under like a creative offensive coordinator.
By the way, Renner's comp for Luther Burden was Percy Harvin, who, was a really strong.
The scouts in the Bob McGinn article compared him to Deebo Samuel. So I like
Deebo's
that
just
sort of
big.
Spectrum.
Deebo's just huge. It's hard to compare guys to Deebo. That's a monster.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4 on Renner's board is a guy who has been screaming up mocks, screaming up in the betting markets, Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden goes to the combine at 5'11", 191 and runs a 4.29. Now, I think teams are getting wise that raw speed at the wide receiver position is not that important, but it still always seems to rise. And we talked about it with Field. We talked about it with Amico on the draft prop. Speed at the wide receiver position always seems to make guys' stock rise, even though I'm not even sure that it should. From a production standpoint, you cannot compare Tet's resume to Matthew Golden's resume. So I guess, Renner, are you surprised that Matthew Golden is screaming up all these mocks and all that? And what do you think about him at the NFL level?
I'll just say this about the 4.29. I thought every single person I've talked to about it agrees he was not a 4.29 guy on tape. I honestly like looking at, I don't know if you've seen the videos of like the 4.29 truther videos about like when they started the clock. I think he got a favorable time. I don't think he's a 4.29 guy at all. Like, I think it was a missed time. He didn't even.
Wait, hold on. Can we just do this electronically? They don't do the start and the stop electronically.
No.
They hand time?
Yes, it's a hand start. And he didn't run a second one, which to me is like a little bit like he ran a 4.29 and then doesn't go again.
I choose not to run.
And also, he did not run at his pro day, right?
Yes, didn't do anything.
Why would you after you ran a 4.29? Why would you run again? All right.
So that all being said, just don't expect him to look like Tyreek, right? He looks more like a 4.4 guy. That's just on tape. That's what I would have pegged him as. And 5'11", 191, he looks bigger than that, though, also on tape. He's got a 6'4" wingspan. I'm not worried about the height. He has a little bit more ability than most of your 5'11" guys, and I think he is an outside wide receiver. Burden was a slot his entire career in college. 80% outside usage for Golden. He's going to be an outside wide receiver. And why people like him and I like him too. I'm not ready to go to bat for him. 15th is he plays physical. He has an aggressive play style. At that size, he competes really, really well at the catch point. He's a full tree route runner, can hit every level of the defense, get open, consistent, and is improving. You've seen improvement from freshman year and sophomore year at Houston to his junior year at Texas. A lot to like. I still worry about ball skills. He does have a 9.4% career drop rate. better this past year, but like really, really bad at Houston. So that's a bit concerning. And then like the production is still just like, there is no high level traits to his game. To me, he just feels like more of a top of the second round wide receiver than a mid first round. Not to say those guys can't go for, 1,200 yards consistently in their career. It's just, I don't see special. I don't see 4.29. I just see a very good all around wide receiver.
Production at Texas did not even lead the team in catches this past year. Tight end Gunnar Helm did. So like, it's always a concern for me when a guy, if you're going to take him in the first round and he couldn't even like lead his college team in catches, that scares me to some degree. That said, like Brian Thomas scored a ton of touchdowns, but he wasn't the most dominant target earner either. And he was, obviously one of these size speed guys. Size is way different on Matthew Golden. All right. Here's one that I know some people are on, been getting a lot of buzz lately. Renner is still way higher than market. Kyle Williams, 5'11", 190, out of Ohio State, is Renner's number 5 wide receiver on his board. Comp is Darnell Mooney. Go ahead on Kyle Williams out of Washington State, Renner.
So he's, the Mooney comp, he's a shorter guy, 5'11", 190, 6'1" wingspan. So it doesn't have like the long arms of a Matthew Golden, but he's twitchier than Golden. He didn't run a 4.29, but he ran a 4.4, and you just watch him on tape. And I just like dare anyone to watch both of them and say that Golden's the better athlete. Like Williams has not only speed, he was the fastest guy at the Senior Bowl in terms of miles per hour, but then he has that like short area quicks to just no one touches him at the line of scrimmage. He gets off the line of scrimmage better than anyone else in this draft class. That's a great trait to have to produce quickly in your NFL career. It is on the older side. He's a 5th year, but he did start as a true freshman in 2020. It's not like he needed 5 years to all of a sudden become a good wide receiver. He's been good, just been in bad situations between UNLV for 3 years and then Washington State. I think he's got solid hands, and he is just, the guy can separate at will pretty much anywhere. Similar to like what we've seen from Mooney over the course of his career. You're not going to be high volume when you're that sort of small. When you are on the thinner side, when you are on the smaller catch radius side, it's difficult to, but I think you can generate a lot of explosive plays, and he did throughout his career. And he was good after the catch too. 21 broken tackles this past season on 70 catches.
Right. Yeah, I think the consensus around the league and why we don't have a great rank, and I think we're going to move Kyle Williams up in the rankings after this, but the reason we don't have a great rank on him is a lot of people are like, he's going to top out as a wide receiver 3. Like that's his like ceiling outcome is to be a wide receiver 3 at the NFL level. So we don't have a great rank on him now, but again, I do think we are going to move him up.
Which is probably, that's how Darnell Mooney was characterized coming out of college. And he's developed into a high-end number 2 receiver at this point.
For sure. All right. Number 6 is going to be a guy who we talked about a bunch with Amico and Field, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, 6'1", 202. People are just pigeonholing this guy as a slot wide receiver who's sure-handed, but he's not explosive enough to be like dominant at the NFL level. Now, I have seen some mocks where he does go in round 1, though. Renner has him here as his wide receiver 6. Your comp for Egbuka is James Jones.
Would not surprise me if he goes in the first round, just because one, not like the most talented first round ever. And so he's like hitting a double. You just know you're on base with him, maybe even like a single. You don't have a high end, but kind of the way the NFL game's going at wide receiver, he really fits the bill. He's willing to block from the slot. He's a bigger body at 6'1", 202, and just so reliable and so smart. So like he has the savvy to, in certain schemes, just be a quarterback's best friend from day one. A lot of reps under his belt. Those Ohio State guys all come in the NFL knowing how to run routes. He can do that. He just doesn't have, of all the Ohio State guys in recent years that have come out, he's the least physically capable, the least physically impressive, whether it's straight line speed, whether it's agility, whatever. There's just not a lot of juice there, but his route tree doesn't necessarily have to be that to produce at a high level. So he's going to be more situation dependent. If he goes to a spot that really features a slot receiver that, has a quarterback who works the middle of the field a lot, he could be a 1,000-yard guy very early in his career. If he goes to a place where they only use a lot of 2 wide and they're asking him to be like, like if he goes to like Dallas and his second fiddle to CeeDee Lamb, I'm not sure he's that guy I want on the outside in Kellen Moore's offense, winning, vertical tree. It's just, I don't think he will. So it's a unique projection, but I think the NFL is going to like him a lot more than maybe the outside, just because of the personality traits, the intelligence, and kind of the floor that he has.
Egbuka gets comparisons kind of to interior receivers consistently, whether it be Jackson Smith and Jigba, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nakua. So I feel like he's going to be scheme dependent. His production is going to be scheme dependent at the next level, but really high floor, was super productive throughout his college career. Had 205 catches at Ohio State, competing for playing time with a bunch of future first round picks. So I mean, yeah, a double sounds right.
We need Brian Hartline's take on where he ranks him. I don't know if you know, Renner, it's been an ongoing bit where anytime we're too low on or too high on a wide receiver rank, Evan asks us if we think we know more than Brian Hartline, who called Jackson Smith and Jigba his favorite wide receiver that he coached at Ohio State, among Marvin Harrison, Olave.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
so good.
Bring it on, Hartline.
Brian Hartline, I know you listen to this podcast religiously. Let me know what you think of Egbuka relative to those other guys. Okay. Let's go to number 7, Jaden Higgins. And we asked Field Yates, who's your favorite wide receiver in this class, not named Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, Matthew Golden. Field said his favorite was Jaden Higgins, started at Eastern Kentucky, ends up catching 87 balls at Iowa State last season. Big guy, 6'4", 214. I believe he ran a 4.47, did Jaden Higgins. So I think stock is rising a little bit on this guy. Thoughts on him, Renner?
Yeah, so if I were to tier this class, like I said, Hunter is in his own category. Then I have McMillan kind of in his own category as first rounders. And then every guy we've talked about, and this is kind of the last in that tier, I see as like top of the second sort of talents. And I would put Higgins firmly in that category. He is like a lab-made possession receiver. He has great size. He has a 6'8" wingspan. He doesn't drop balls, 3% career drop rate. Just the guy has what you want for a possession wide receiver. Now, does he get open a ton? No. Is he a big play threat? Probably not either. 4.47 was a great time for him, but he's not a stack and go type of outside big bodied wide receiver. He's much more of a, run a comeback and he can get open on stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of his game. I'm right there with you. Like I said, I see him in that tier of guys who are getting first round hype. I think he's right in that mix. It's just pick your flavor of that mix. But that's a good flavor for fantasy because those guys get targeted in the red zone. Those guys get a lot of targets. And I think in that top of the second range, you're going to have a lot of wide receiver needy teams. I think if he goes to, like a New England or a Tennessee there, that's a guy that could get a lot of targets really early on.
It might have something to do with the way that Iowa State recruits, that they always have like a big receiver who is really productive, whether it be Hakeem Butler or Alan Lazard or even Xavier Hutchinson, who's now with the Texans. And this guy's the next guy in line. 4.4. So
he's the first one I've liked. I actually didn't like any of those guys coming out.
Really?
He's the first one. So yeah.
Speaking of Iowa State, number 8 on Renner's board also is out of Iowa State. Jalen Noel, 5'10", 194, ran 4.38. He did catch 80 balls. I mean, only 7 fewer catches than Higgins caught last season. I've seen some round 3 buzz, actually a lot of round 3 buzz here on Jalen Noel. Renner, your comp for him is Eddie Royal.
Yeah, just like a vertical type of slot wide receiver, high end speed, gets off the line fast, tough. I mean, a great build if you're going to be shorter. He's very stocky, stout, can take hits. You saw it consistently on his tape, his ability to go over the middle of the football field, attack the ball, still come down with it. He is a slot, though, or at least was at Iowa State. I think there could be some outside ability to his game in terms of pure vertical threat, but he did play 72.7% of the snaps in the slot for the career. So that's probably where he's going to end up. But yeah, man, I mean, he gets open. He got open at the Senior Bowl. He gets open on tape. He's tough. There's just not a lot to dislike about him other than not a great frame. 6'1" wingspan is like obviously not ideal, and not like a true, refined day one, Lad McConkey-esque route runner, but he's still firmly a middle of day 2 guy for me.
Number 9 for Renner among wide receivers is Alec Iomanor, 6'2", 206 out of Stanford. Comp is Alec Pierce. Go ahead, Renner.
And I think that's maybe doing him a little bit of disservice calling him Alec Pierce, but like they are both big, rocked up, strong wide receivers who can get vertical very easily. He's got a 6'6" wingspan. He's this like Greek god in person. Like the guy has no body fat on him. Ran a 4.44, 38.5-inch vertical. And, he's been productive since he saw the football field at Stanford. Had a meniscus tear freshman year, sophomore year, first season he's playing, 1,000-yard season. This past year, 831 yards, but like the quarterback situation was a disaster. And he's relatively newish to football. Came from Canada, was a hockey player growing up. And before you like get visions of Chase Claypool, he's so much more mature. The guy, when we interviewed him, he said he has been handling football as if it's his job since he stepped on field at Stanford. And I think it shows on tape. He's a guy who NFL evaluators or NFL like coaches are going to love because they'll be down, they'll be getting their ass kicked Stanford, and he's still trying to block his butt off. He is a guy who is going to block in the run game. That's a great way for him to see the football field early on in his career. And he has got high end sort of potential. You just don't see route running chops right now. You don't see necessarily the fluidity. You don't see the ball skills that you would like, but it's like how much of that is just him being new to the position and how much is correctable. It's a unique balance to sort of string, but I bet he goes in the second round because of the way he run blocks. I just think someone's going to fall in love with him.
Yeah, I went to the Notre Dame Stanford game this past year, and the quarterback situation was dreadful. I mean, and this is back when Riley Leonard was not playing well at the beginning of the season. The fans were booing Riley Leonard. Somebody was sitting next to me going, "Riley, you suck." But the Stanford quarterback situation was even way worse than what we were dealing with at Notre Dame. I've seen cut-ups of, I'm going to say it, Alec Ayamanor.
Ayomanor, I think. Yeah.
Is that right? I've seen cut-ups of him from 2023, like running by Travis Hunter. In the game against Colorado that year, he had 13. Ayamanor had 13 catches for 294 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't know that all came against Travis Hunter. I'm sure it didn't. But I mean, I've seen cut-ups of him running by Travis Hunter.
Yeah, so I think the two worst plays of Hunter's career, 2023, one came Ayomanor, the other one was Kyle Williams, who burnt him for a go ball touchdown. So,
I mean, we're high in the market on this guy. We're at 166 overall. Market's taking him closer to 180 overall. So yeah, I'm super interested in where this guy lands for sure. Number 10 is a guy who I've seen as high as wide receiver 5 in this class. Renner has him as his wide receiver 10. That's Trey Harris, 6'2", 205 out of Ole Miss. Comp is Javon Baker, which doesn't instill much confidence. But go ahead, Renner, on Trey Harris. Seems like maybe you're a little bit lower than market on Trey Harris, slightly.
I'm not sure if I'm lower or if I'm just like higher on this receiver class. Like we got one more guy that we're going to get to. I like them all. I think the guy at the top 11 in this class, I think will be productive NFL wide receivers. I put Harris in that mix. The biggest thing with him is kind of what we talked about with Jackson Dart is just they run like 3 routes at Ole Miss. Now, that's maybe not fair. There are times when he's running other routes, but it's so infrequently that it's just hard to get a handle on. But at 6'2", 206, 6'6" wingspan, he's kind of this big, long outside threat who can get off the line. And his 4.5 40, I said about how 4.47 for Higgins, and it doesn't really show of them getting vertical. 4.54, Harris still gets on top of corners. He can still win over the top on go balls. And this past year, he had over 1,000 yards in only 8 games. 5.12 yards per route. Just insane what he was doing, but got banged up. He is on the older side at 23 years old. And you do worry, like, what's his route running going to be at the next level if he's kind of raw right now. But I thought I saw great movement skills when he was asked to do more, just unique ability at that size that I think he can be a productive sort of number 2 in an offense in the right situation. And much more of, we've talked about a few slot guys. He and Ayoman are outside type of wide receivers that, in the right spot can be really productive in that role.
Yeah, God. Let me see where we actually have Trey Harris because I've seen him all over the map. Yeah, we're at 136 overall on Trey Harris right now. So expecting him to get pretty decent draft capital here. All right. I was just thinking in my head about this next guy because I can't believe you have him as number 11 on the board, Renner. He is 154 pounds, Renner. I weigh more than this guy. Okay. How do you get on the NFL field at 154 pounds and not get killed? It is Tez Johnson, 5'10, 154 out of Oregon, is Renner's wide receiver 11. Renner, you're asking this guy for a death sentence at this weight. Go ahead on Tez Johnson.
He very well may, right? I mean, we've seen Tank Dell just get crushed his first 2 years in the league, but I watch his tape and it's a lot like Tank Dell's, man. He just gets open at will. At the Senior Bowl, no one was better. No one was better in the one-on-ones. Did not get locked down once. 6'6", 3 cone. He's got that shiftiness that's just unique. Can't touch him if you tried sort of ability that, Tank Dell had. Got open a lot, productive until he got hurt. I think that's just the worry with him is at that size, you can only take one wrong hit and all of a sudden it's like curtains. It's going to be tough for him. So there is that obviously looming over him, but like the guy has smooth route running ability, refined route runner, probably the best in that regard in this draft class right now. He is just tiny, but very productive. 39 broken tackles over the past 2 years, over 2,000 yards at Oregon the past 2 years. And I think there's a good chance that, he might not go first couple rounds, but he's Bo Nix's brother. I bet Denver drafts him. I bet Denver drafts him.
Shower narrative you're referring to. Yes, shower narrative. Yeah. And it's not like he's short, right? Tank Dell, I believe, at the comment was 5'8", 165.
Mm-hmm.
This is 5'10", so maybe he can put on more weight, but we do not have a rank right now on this guy in the best ball.
He weighs in the 150s and he ran 4.5. See, I'm just worried, like, is he going to go like in the 5th or 6th round or something? Because teams do use, measurables to stack their boards. Not everything is based on tape. And I'm just worried that he might, I don't know. Tank Dell went in the 3rd round.
Tank Dell did run a 4.49, but yeah, I mean, Tank Dell weighed a little bit more, but he was shorter. So yeah, we'll see. But like, we're not expecting much draft capital on this guy, which is why we do not have him ranked in the best ball stuff. 12 on Renner's board is Elijah Badger. Comp is Marvin Jones Jr., 6'1", 200, out of the University of Florida. Did run a 4.43. Did Elijah Badger, Renner?
Yeah, so he had, transferred from Arizona State to Florida this past year, 863 yards for Florida, 7 touchdowns. He actually broke out back a while ago for Arizona State, had an 800-yard season as a redshirt sophomore. Great hands. He didn't drop a ball this past year, 4.2% career drop rate. Good after the catch, 64 missed tackles on 181 receptions. I just think he needs to get a little more physical. And we're kind of at the point where it's like, these are borderline day 3 guys. I think 11, and then it's guys who can maybe fill a role.
You mean borderline? Borderline day 2 guys.
Sorry, yeah. Borderline getting drafted in day 3. And he's just, I think he'd be a great number 3 wide receiver because he doesn't drop balls, because he can take a screen and create a little bit with it. I don't see much high-end ability on his tape, but at his size, with a 6'6" wingspan, like, he can play on the outside too. So the NFL, as you just touched on with like Tez, they care about size. They care about, the role you can play. And if a guy can play on the outside, that's going to bump him up over guys who are slot onlys.
That's Renner's number 13 is Jack Bech, Senior Bowl MVP, 6'1", 214 at TCU. I just wanted to run through these last few guys quickly here, Renner. Jack Bech, Jalen Royals, shout out Penn State for a little bit, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Isaiah Bond. Those are the next 4 on your board. And I think, varying degrees of chances of going on day 2 here for these guys. But yeah, any final thoughts or any quick thoughts on those last 4 there?
So I went with a different white for Jack Bech, and I went with Chris Hogan. But it is a white because he's so slow. He didn't run a pre-draft 40. It would be like a high 4.6 in my opinion. He just doesn't have a gear to get open down the football field. But if he goes to like a true defined slot role, a three wide receiver sort of team that is going to use that, I think he could be really productive. So like, he's the one in this group that, depending on where, I think he could, because he exceptional ball skills, strong guy. His freshman year at LSU, before transferring to TCU, he actually got more snaps than than Brian Thomas Jr. on that team before obviously having to transfer because, those guys were far more physically gifted, but over 1,000 yards this past year, the word I have is that he's not a true outside possession wide receiver, even speed regardless. He has only a 6'3" wingspan, doesn't have the ability to go up and get it or pluck it out of the air. So it's just going to be limited in the slot. But if he's a guy who could really outplay his draft stock depending on where he goes. Royals, I just comp was Christian Kirk. I think he's just kind of an okay slot receiver. Good hands, had such a weird role at Utah State, but has this odd body type where he's built like a running back, short arms, doesn't have a real big catch radius. So back end of day 2, early day 3 guy for me. And then I think Isaiah Bond's the guy that is so much more talented than where I have him ranked and where he's probably going to go, but he may legitimately be off like everyone's board except the Bengals. You know, his what I've heard from him and just like what he's been in terms of like in the buildings. The quote I heard was that he played a factor in Nick Saban retiring, like not even like tongue in cheek, that his just like kind of like typifies the generation of the all about them, NIL, what can you pay me, what can you whatever, doesn't care about what they do on the football field, but ran a 4.39. Like he was in.
So they had Isaiah Bond and Jeremiah Burton at Alabama at the same time.
Yes, and that was why Nick Saban retired. So.
Yeah, I mean, Bond's going to go higher than I think Renner has him here at the wide receiver 16. Comp you had on him is Danny Gray, which doesn't instill a lot of confidence, but we're not very high on Bonds either right now. 182 overall in the ranks. Only other note that I had on Jalen Royals, fastest 10-yard split in the entire combine, not among wide receivers. Fastest 10-yard split out of any player at the combine for Jalen Royals there. And you had the Christian Kirk comp on him, which I thought was an interesting one. So we'll see where he ends up landing as well. All right. We've covered all the wide receivers here on what is a not as strong of a class as I think we've had. I think Renner's point that it's an okay class makes sense because we've had such incredible classes leading up to this.
Well, it also really helps if you just lock in Travis Hunter as a wide receiver, because then all of a sudden you have a potential superstar at the top of the group. Because people, like, not everybody is considering Travis Hunter as a wide receiver. I think that they should start to, and Renner does.
Right. Yep. Agreed. And but I mean, we've had so many incredible classes over the last, 1 to 5 years that this one just seems to underwhelm a bit relative to that. But anyways, very interested to see where everybody lands. That is going to do it for our look at wide receivers here. We'll be back next time to talk tight ends. For Renner, for Silva, Bruce Luke, for Bruce Ryan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.